These are the tangles we're going to be doing today. You will need just a piece of paper, anything you have. I work in a square format. It's 3.5 by 3.5 inches. You'll need a pencil. You'll need a pen. I use a Micron 01 or this Pigma pen. I also have a tortillon, which is just kind of a rolled up piece of paper that I use for blending. As always, the first step in Zentangle is gratitude. And I'm just grateful to be able to have time to be here with you guys today. I'm going to use my pencil first. And when I draw on my tile, I'm going to be doing it fairly darkly so that everyone can see. But when you do your own, you just do it as dark as you need to be able to see where you've made your marks. So in each corner, I'm going to put a little dot. Now I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to connect those dots along the edge. Okay, now I'm going to do a string where I'm using my pencil again and I'm going to divide my space up with a pencil mark. So I'm going to start on this side about this far up. I'm going to swing up here, kind of curve it, and then come back down. So that's the design that I've decided on today. From this point, I'm going to move into using my pen. We're going to start in this section over here with this pattern, and the name of this is worms. So I'm going to come along this pencil line, but I'm not going to follow it exactly because I want my worms to have some life and wiggle. So I'm going to wiggle in and out. No particular plan in mind, just wiggle along that line there. I'm going to leave some space, so I'm going to wiggle around again. I'm not trying to follow the exact same wiggles, I'm just wiggling some more. Then on a place where there's a little bit of a dip, it's going to be kind of like a long skinny eye shape. I'm going to throw one of those in there. So this is the beginning of the worms. We've got them all sectioned out. And the next part is putting little arcs. I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to of this main, between these two first lines that I've got going here. And I'm going to start on my left side, and I'm going to draw a curved line that goes up and back down and lands on that first side. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to head up this direction, adding curved lines, starting on the left edge, curve up, and come back down to the right edge. You can turn these ends into bubbles as well a little bit. So with one of these that's like a little eye shape, and I'm just going to start in the middle. I'm going to do the curves doing the same direction. I'm just going to continue the same thing of adding curves between the lines as I head to the left. So the next section we're going to work on is this outer section, where we're going to put this one here that's called Crazy Cadent. And the reason it's called Crazy Cadent is because the original cadent goes in kind of a grid form, where it's kind of squares, but we're going to be working with more triangular shapes. And I'm doing this one next so that I can put this tangle in between, and it can kind of go underneath both of them. So I'm going to start my Crazy Cadent by putting a series of orbs right along that pencil line. Now with cadent, the idea is to make a set of 3 orbs that you can hook together. So I'm going to put an orb out here, and I'm just going to look at these 3. And how I hook them together is I do one of these swing things where I swing off the left of this top one around and to the bottom right, kind of like an S curve. That same motion we're going to be repeating to the other curves. So we're going to continue to hook sets of 3 together. So we've got 1, 2, 3. We can hook those together, or we can add another orb and hook that one together. So I'm going to go ahead and hook these together. Now I could hook these together as well, but that's kind of a long distance between here and there. So I'm going to stick another orb out here to hook together. So we're going to move on to adding the stripes. I'm going to work in one of these triangles at a time, and I'm going to pick one of those circles to come out of and land on the opposite side. We did something like this last week with Munchin, but this time we're going to curve it just like we did before, but it's going to land on that line like this. It's going to land on the line. So I've got fanned out edges. I'm going to add a little bit of ink to the bottom of each of those lines where they land. So now that little guy is striped, has some interesting texture in there. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to come off of this one this time and bring it around and land on that edge. One of the neatest things about Zentangle is we all have our own personal touch. And so even though I'm giving certain instructions, everyone is able to interpret that in their own way and come up with something that is their very own. Okay, we're going to move on to the next section, which is this one here in the middle. That's called Flukes. And it starts with a grid. So I'm going to put a line that goes from this corner over until it bumps into and stops at the crazy cadent. So I'm just going to draw a straight line. Then I'm going to do some parallels. I don't want these to be really tiny squares. I want them pretty good sized. I want them at least as wide as my pen. Then I'm going to turn my tile and do the lines going the other direction, so I end up with some squares. So I'm just going to pick one of these squares in the middle to get started, and I'm going to draw a line that's a little space in. It's going to aura or echo the outside of the box. I'm going to do it one more time. And then I'm going to do it a third time. All of these spacings are about the same. And then when I've done it the third time, it's time to start filling in with ink. So that is one of the sections of Flukes completely finished. So I'm going to repeat that going the same direction for every one of these squares. think we're ready to do some shading. So I'm going to start by shading the flukes because it's kind of really dramatic and adds a lot of depth right away. So you can see that the lighter edge of each fluke, I'm going to go around the outside of that lighter edge. So you can see when I put that, and just kind of blend it in up on that peak. My tortillon has some graphite on it at this point, and I'm going to run it on top of the white parts of the flukes right over there outside the worms, just so the worms look like they're kind of up above the flukes. I'm going to do the same thing right along the outside of the cadent, so it really pushes the flukes down into the background a little bit. The next thing I'm going to shade is along those landing edges in the cadent where we added the extra ink. And I'm going to put a little graphite right along the lines that I drew in the worms. I don't want to blend this out very much. I'm going to find a place for my initials next. And then if you happen to have a white chalk pencil, I'm going to show you something on the crazy cadent that's kind of fun. If you don't worry about that. If I put a little bit of white chalk pencil right where the graphite kind of ends, kind of pops a little bit of a highlight to make those a little bit shiny looking.